Welcome to Friends, Life, and Ministry. Real talk from four pastors with over 200 years of ministry experience.
Hey, welcome to Friends, Life, and Ministry. We're a bunch of friends that try to share ideas that are meaningful to us as we reflect on our lives. We'd love to hear questions from you or your thoughts on things that you'd like addressed. Today, we're just going to be sharing kind of life lessons, and there are many of them that just stand out. And one of the ones we were talking about is just what's a topic you come back and preach on fairly often or think about fairly often. And for me, a verse that has really framed a lot of my understanding of life is John 16:33, when Jesus says that in the world you have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And that's helped me because every day there are troubling things that happen. Every day there's trouble I cause. And so I'm not surprised by trouble. I'm not surprised by people doing dumb things, bad things, even really people that I count on and good people that I care for making mistakes. That's part of the nature of a fallen world. And it just helps me not to overreact to that. But then the other part of it is that Jesus has overcome the world. And some of that overcoming I won't see and experience until I go to be with him. But on a regular basis, through the church and through other Christ followers and people caring about needs in our world, I see God's power to overcome evil, even in the midst of our world all around us. So I almost look at that as it balances me out. You know, it keeps me realistic about this world, but always also optimistic and hoping for more. Guys, when I say that, any reactions?
I think that that's really good. Um, if we understand that whatever problems might come our way, that He has overcome the world, but that we are going to face difficulties. And I'm going to be speaking on First Peter 4, and it just constantly is talking about the suffering that was going on during this time of Nero. Yeah, that's a powerful verse, Paul.
And you know, the Bible says the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. We all go through times of difficulty and adversity. You can be a saint or a sinner. You're still going to go through hard times in life.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think so many people, it's so easy to get sort of surprised by hard times or go, God, why me? Or how could you let this happen? And then I know particularly for me, it's when I see, other people that fail me. I mean, and then it helps me to realize, well, boy, I failed plenty of people. In fact, whenever I get close to people, one of the things I tell them, particularly people at the church, if they go, we really like the church and like you as a pastor and are thankful for you. I go, well, just wait, I'll disappoint you. In fact, I won't just disappoint you once. I'll disappoint you multiple times. I always do.
I used to.
Forgive me if you can and give me another chance. Don't be afraid to point it out. And then I'll say, but I got a feeling you probably will disappoint me too.
Yeah.
Lynn and I, when someone, a couple or an individual approached us and really wanted to be friends, we we'd say, we're not good friends. What? And then they said, what? And I said, well, the problem is, if we see you at church and we understand that you're already committed to the church, then I need to go and see all of these other people. We both do, to try to connect them. And so we were really open and honest and just said, we might have an evening planned with you and there could be an emergency. and that would just change everything, especially when the church got large. And we were just real honest about about that. And we still ended up with people who were willing to persevere, but with us. But then at least they understood
Yeah.
that.
There's a great idea there, Steve, of just maybe being a little more honest and forthright than
Yeah.
with people and upfront, that it can kind of create the right kind of environment for relationships to grow and flourish.
Yeah, and we really were blessed with people after telling them that really upheld us in prayer, encouraged us. They understood that all kinds of private emergencies happened and that we were kind of in the middle of many of them.
One of the things I've learned about leadership is that humility is just a huge thing in leadership. So it's honesty, but it's also a level of humility to say what you said about, I'm going to offend you at times or do something wrong. I mean, that's just realistic, but a lot of people would never say that, could never say that. And I think it's one of the keys to a successful leader to be able to open and honest about that. The other part of it is, in the Bible, it says, can two walk together unless they be agreed? And a lot of times in churches or in relationship, it's just such an important thing that there be a level of agreement and openness and honesty with each other. Otherwise, we're never going to really get along together.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, sometimes I think you can end up having false expectations of people, of institutions like churches or the job you work at or friendships, and 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 because we have false expectations, we end up always dissatisfied with what's happening. When if you calibrated your expectations in a correct way, you'd look and go, well, actually, there are a lot of people that care about me. Just no one that cares about me as much as I would hope they would care. Or, yeah, a lot of people value me, but no, there aren't all that many people that think that I have to be the world's greatest. And sometimes I just think our expectations get in the way of
yeah.
living just sort of normal sized lives.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's great.
How about Bill or Steve? A life lesson that comes to mind for you?
I've liked Ecclesiastes a lot. Just it's very pragmatic book in the Old Testament, and some things about it talks about the importance of doing things together. It says one can fall down and fail, but two will hold each other's backs and they'll sustain each other. And a lot of times, just the practical needs of having people who stand with us that we know we can depend on. And I think, Steve, you were talking a minute ago about the fact that on average, we've been married 50 years each here, and how we are been so dependent on our wives
Hmm.
to help us. And one of the reasons we've been together so long is because of the relationships we have built over the decades.
Yep, that's excellent. Excellent. For me, um, it seems like um, I needed to learn a lot of lessons, and most of the lessons were learned the hard way. I can remember on Sunday mornings, um, especially when we got into this larger building, and our lobby was twice the size of our previous worship center. And there'd be all of these people filled in there, and someone would come and talk to me, and they would look right into my eyes, and they would be talking, and the verse would be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry.
James.
Um, and I would have this administrative mindset on, and I would see someone that I was in the middle of trying to move closer to Christ or needing to set up an appointment, and they were just over behind the person talking to me. And my eyes would stray from this person's eyes to where I needed to go.
Hmm.
And someone was brave enough to tell me the truth. And I was embarrassed, but they just said, "Aren't I important enough to have your attention?" And I remember it was something like that. It was honest, but it was kind of like tough
Yeah.
love. And I realized that if someone is standing right in front of me, there isn't anybody more important right then. Or if there is something urgent, I need to apologize or I needed to address it differently. And that was a wake-up call. And when someone comes up to me, I try to just look them in the eyes and I try to be quick to listen and just now, I'm sure I blow it all the time, but um, I can just I can imagine what it must have felt like to have being looked past when Jesus never did that.
Yeah. I remember a lady coming up, and my dad was a pastor too, and saying, "Oh, I don't like to talk to your dad at church." And I said, "How come?" He said, "Because he's never just talking to me. He's
Mm.
talking to everybody around me, and waving at somebody over here, and that was important for me. I had to learn that lesson, like you said, Steve, of just zeroing in on the person I was talking to, and just getting away from all the distractions that go on, especially on a Sunday morning."
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
and
been guilty of that too.
Yeah.
I think I think that you could probably, if a younger pastor is listening, I think that you could probably even talk from the podium and just share some of the hardest things that you have as a pastor. And just say you want to be in 100 places at the same time,
Yeah.
and that, you know, um, there are things that are going on in people's lives that are part of our church, and I I'm in the middle of it. And sometimes if I am not paying as close of attention, will you please forgive me? And if by doing that, at least they would have heard that. And if that person wasn't there that week, say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I've shared from the podium before about how challenging finding a balance is."
But as and that's such a wise thing to self-disclose in that way. I was thinking too, though, just the idea that you try to change and give people full attention. And
Mhm.
if you're giving someone full attention and other people are around and they're watching that, they're probably admiring it.
Yep.
And what they probably don't admire is when we're just glad handing um, and
Yeah.
always distracted. And
Yeah.
yet it's so natural to fall into those patterns. One, if you're listening to this, just having people in your life that would uh, tell you the truth about how you're perceived,
Hmm.
because that we don't often see the truth of how we're perceived.
And ask them. Don't expect them to volunteer it, but ask some key questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be open with them. Say, I really would like your perspective,
Yeah.
because
Well,
there's such great learning in that.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that if some people are going to be very hesitant, like Bill was just talking, but if we were to let them know we don't have the ability to watch ourselves and we're just trying to do our best, and and if you could help us.
Mm.
So if you're watching this, whether you're a pastor or not, um, just be aware of giving people your full attention. I think that even it would be a great opening for evangelism if someone, a coworker, and when they talk to you, you just zero right in on them. And that would be such an odd experience for anybody
Mhm.
to have somebody care that much.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I do just on tips that you can give people, I'll take my right hand and when I'm talking with someone, I'll take the first three fingers and I'll try to ask what I call three questions deep. So I ask a first question, then I'll ask a follow-up question, and then I'll ask another follow-up question. And what I found is if I ask three questions deep, most
Mm.
people feel like they were cared for. And
Mhm.
that's where it's by the third question that I start learning what's really going on. Often the third question will be about how they're feeling or what they're perceiving is taking place. I heard a person that studies language and linguistics, and they said conversations don't happen until after 7 minutes. In other words, in any social setting,
Yeah.
there's 7 minutes of small talk,
Mhm.
and that's where a real conversation can start.
Mhm.
And uh, then it was just a real telling comment. He said, "So most people never have a real conversation because they
Wow.
only stay engaged for 4 or 5 minutes and then go and have small talk with somebody else." And I think there's something about praying that God would let you love people that will help you stay in stay in conversation with them in a longer way.
I was
Great
listening
thoughts.
to a podcast by a psychologist. Every night I go to sleep with an earbud in my ear, and I listen to podcasts because then I don't get frustrated about having trouble sleeping, and I fall asleep during that time. And
Mm.
um, uh, anyway, there are some really very good podcasts, and one of the things that was said is um, we live in a culture where many people are never touched. That if a widow or widower or a person
Mhm.
who's single, there's just at best like a handshake. And
Yeah.
I'm talking about being completely appropriate, but we have some very retired people in the church that we're attending, and in their 90s, and
Mm.
um, one of the things that I decided I was going to do is I was going to hug them. And what the psychologist said is there's actually a change in the release of something in our brain if we're hugged for 12 seconds or more. And now that's a pretty long period of time, but with some of these elderly people, um, they just they need touch. And so I guess the whole overview is looking into people's eyes, appropriate touch, kind words, letting them know that we really love them,
Yeah.
and can
Well,
really.
let's
12
wrap this up
seconds.
for today. Bill, closing thoughts for us?
No, just be open to what people will tell you. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just trying to help you.
Mhm.
Well, very good word. Hey, thank you for watching and listening to Friends, Life, and Ministry. Our good friend John Van Dinther couldn't make it today, but we hope he'll be back with us next time. Thanks for your attention. God bless.
God bless.
Thanks for listening or watching. We would love to hear your questions.